Hey everybody, this is Ted Check, recovering reporter. Here's an interesting headline from Mediaite. They hate Trump so much. Dan Abrams says mainstream media can try to, quote, restore credibility by acknowledging Trump's successes. This is Dan Abrams right here. You might recognize him. He's been around for a long, long time in the media. I believe he's an attorney, and he's been the host of numerous cable shows, and I think he's started at least one or two, and he's the president of Mediaite, founder of Mediaite. So yeah, so he got on a podcast on his own website, hosted by another dude, and they talked about a number of things, related to Donald Trump and his upcoming presidency. So Dan Abrams said some pretty interesting things here. It's kind of surprising because Mediaite is a left-leaning website, but this is this is a refreshing approach. So let's read it here. This is Dan Abrams saying, there will be successes for this administration. They may have a very successful Middle East policy. I don't know. Donald Trump may come in and the war in Ukraine may end because Donald Trump forces them to sit down or whatever. The media has to be able to not sit there, and they have to be willing, even the people who hate Donald Trump. If you want to be seen as a remotely fair broker, you got to give credit where it's due. And that allows you to then also criticize where it's warranted. Yes, yes, for God's sake, that's what I've been saying in my book here, right? I mean, you have to, Saving the Beast, a recovering reporter reflects on America's broken media and how to fix it. That's what I'm trying to tell you. This is true journalism. This is being objective, right? You give credit where credit is due, and then you criticize when it's due. It's an even playing field. You're cutting it right down the middle, fair and balanced, if you will. To kind of borrow from Fox News, but it's true. Being objective, okay? Laying everything out there for the American public, letting them use their critical thinking to make up their own minds. That's what it's all about. So it's very refreshing to hear that. Here's another quote from him. The problem is the folks who just want to criticize because they hate Donald Trump so much. So true. And I do think there is a level of Trump derangement syndrome. TDS, that's what we've been saying. TDS, it's a real thing. People on the right use that term. I think there's validity to that. I do think there is a level of Trump derangement syndrome among some, that they are completely incapable of giving him credit for anything. Yeah, they just hate his guts so much, no matter what the guy does, no matter how good, no matter how successful, doesn't matter. They're always going to find something negative and never give anything positive. And you want to restore credibility? Try and call balls and strikes. Give him credit when it's warranted, recognize successes. I think that allows you to then the freedom to criticize as well. Boom. Period. I mean, that is just amazing. Props to Dan Abrams for saying it. At least the guy has, he may have left leanings, but he's also sensible. Okay, the guy has, he has the wherewithal to realize, hey, look, if we're talking about true journalism here, this is the way we have to play it. Okay, just going negative 100% of the time. Is not going to work. That's not going to restore credibility. That's why the American public has left. That's why the numbers are going down, and the mainstream media is having to lay hundreds of people off. They're hemorrhaging viewers and readers because they're not delivering what the American public want to see and hear. That's it. So yeah, like I said, this is very refreshing. I'd like to see more, and we're seeing this in pockets. We're seeing it in pockets here and there, that people in the mainstream media are starting to recognize this, and they're coming forward and they're saying something about it. Like in the instance of President Biden's the loss of President Biden's mental acuity. That was the biggest lie of 2024. That was the biggest cover-up of 2024. And now, well, now had he won re-election, you might not hear this stuff. But now that he's out the door, you've got journalists coming out of the woodwork, here and there on the mainstream media side and saying, hey, you know what? We should have pressed harder. We should have investigated further. We should have looked into that. And you know what? We didn't. And yeah, it's a black mark on the profession. So we do have a few in, like I said, in pockets. We do have members of the mainstream media coming out and saying things like that. So there's starting to be this this introspection, and that's what I talk about in my book. Is the mainstream media needs to take a long, hard look in the mirror and realize they're the problem. They are at the root of the problem. You can't blame anybody else. You can't blame the audience. You can't blame Trump. You can't blame anyone but yourselves. You did it to yourselves. You played yourself. You played yourself. Yeah, they really did. They drank their own Kool-Aid. They thought they siloed themselves in the ivory tower and thought that they were better than the American people. That they could take the moral high ground and tell people what and how to think. And it's just wrong. And it's not true journalism. And the American people aren't dumb. They realize, they know what's going on. They can see it. They can sense it. And they're like, oh, okay. If that's the way you're going to play it, I'm taking my toys and I'm leaving the sandbox. I'm going elsewhere. I don't need you. And that's why they're going in droves to independent journalists and citizen journalists. That's why that's happening. There's been a paradigm shift in American media. And it'll continue unless they turn things around. But I think now that they're losing so much money, I think they're starting, and their heads are on the chopping blocks, and they're having to take pay cuts, if not outright layoffs. I think they're kind of starting to realize. I always said it would be when they lose enough money. That's when the turning point would occur. It's like an intervention. It's like a self-intervention. You can hold all the interventions you want for them, but they need to do it to themselves. They need to realize they're the problem. So there you go. Props to Dan Abrams and Mediaite for focusing on this, at least for one show, and hopefully it'll be reflected on their website as well. That would also be very refreshing. So yeah, let me know your thoughts, and I will talk to you later.